Pensions and property taxes. Some of the things that taxpayers in Illinois know all about, but doesn't seem to be the main focus of state legislators as they continue on with spring session. Will there be a focus on property taxes and pensions? It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning and join us for Illinois in Focus Daily. Let's start with pensions. $140 billion unfunded liability. That's just for the state's 5 public sector pension funds. And they tried to address this with a tier 2. This was for employees hired after 2011, lower benefits. Hopefully they were looking to try to stave off some of the increased costs from tier 1 that had 3% compounding annual increases in their pensions. But you also had essentially fully taxpayer subsidized health care for state retirees. And it was not just state retirees. This was also for local governments and those in the public safety space, like firefighters and police officers and municipal workers and so on. So it's not just the state level that's impacted by tier 1 and tier 2. It's also the local government. And you're the taxpayer funding all of it, right? You're the taxpayer that's paying into the state's taxes with your income tax, the state sales tax with your sales tax dollars. You're also paying your property taxes, which goes to local school districts, which goes to your municipality, your village, your township, your library district, your community college district. Look at your tax bill, and you'll see just 5, 6, 7, 8 mosquito abatement district. You'll see all of that. So the pensions have been a major problem for years, right? 14 years ago, they started up tier 2 pensions with fewer benefits. But for months now, there have been conversations about, essentially increasing the benefits for tier 2 because they feel that it's not going to be in line with equivalent Social Security benefits. And federal law says if you have a Social Security replacement plan, it has to be equivalent. If it's not, then you're going to run into problems. Last month, Andrew Bodavies, he is with the Teachers Retirement System. He's a lobbyist with TRS. TRS is the state's largest public sector pension fund. It's only about 45% funded. Think about that. They don't have enough to pay the bill if it was to come due today. Actuaries and investment advisors, you can find that say you're supposed to be 100% funded, but the TRS system's only 45% funded. But Davies talks about the concerns they have, not necessarily about the funding level, but about possibly being penalized by the federal government for not having tier 2 pension benefits be equivalent to what that individual would get with Social Security benefits.
That not being a part of Social Security, we do that because we are a Social Security replacement plan. There is ongoing concern whether we will be able to, in the long term, maintain that Social Security replacement status with the tier 2 benefit structure not complying with the plain language of the federal law on what they require you to offer in benefits and be a Social Security replacement plan.
So, but Davies talking about the concerns they have of not, matching that Social Security benefit. A legislator asked during that committee hearing last month, well, how many in TRS are actually running afoul with this?
I don't know I don't know that I have. I don't know that I haven't. We've had conversations with our actuaries. It is reasonable to assume that we will, and that we will in the relatively short-term future.
So they may. They don't know that for a fact, but they have actuaries that say, well, it could. And a lot of that, Bo Davies said, was because maybe the local school district, the employer, which there's 800 plus school districts in the state, maybe they're not communicating that to the TRS quite yet, but they fully anticipate that it's going to happen soon with tier 2 employees that are going to be found to not be in the equivalency of Social Security. Well, State Representative Stephen Reich, who's on some of these pension committees, he got up on the House floor last week and talked about a budget line item in the governor's proposed budgets that he has a problem with.
In his budget, he allocated $78 million to increase the state's contribution to the pension plan by $78 million to address the issue of the Social Security wage base here in Illinois and our possible, the fact that we're possibly going to be out of compliance with that, which is going to cost a bloody fortune.
So Reich talking about a budget line item, $73 million that one of his staffers found, and he also went on to talk about how that staffer went out and found a report from Siegel, financial analysts, and they looked at a variety of different pension funds, and they're like, well, it could be, you might need just $78 million to increase the benefits for these Tier 2 employees because it's not going to match with Social Security, but Reich went on to discuss how that report was not fully looking at all of what needs to happen here.
$78 million. So the governor took that number, slapped it in his budget, and made that this year's amount that is going to increase the pension contribution in order to satisfy the Social Security wage base. However, here's the rest of the story. The rest of the story is the fact that the Siegel report only covers 3 pension plans. It covers teachers, state employees, and state university retirement system. It doesn't cover judges. It doesn't cover the General Assembly pension plan, nor does it cover the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund, which also we are on the hook for making these types of contributions for. Also, there are 12 other pension plans throughout Illinois which are affected by this very same issue. So somewhere along the line, the governor thinks that $78 million that he plucked out of a report without reading what the report actually was about is the amount that's going to fix the Social Security wage-based problem. Unfortunately, the governor didn't read the next page of the analysis, and again, this is only on the for the purposes of the 3 plans that were part of the thing. Tier 2 salary cap to Social Security wage base, state contributions through fiscal year 2045, $6.12 billion with a B dollars. $78 million is going to cover this year's Social Security wage base amounts for the 3 plans that are in the analysis. We're probably going to have to double that when we look at the other plans that we're on the hook for, and not to mention the fact that somebody's got to pay for the Social Security wage base adjustment out of those other 12 plans, and who's going to be responsible for that money? The taxpayers of Illinois.
So Reich laying out that the Siegel report, while it said $73 million for 3 specific pension funds, you've got other funds that when added probably are going to have to double that just for this fiscal year in the increase of pensions. And the overall cost over 2045 is going to be more than $6 billion. Why is it this way? Well, because look at the latest report from the Auditor General. This came out back in January, and we talked about this then. But it lays out the funding ratio. We're only 46% funded across all 5 of the state's pension funds, the worst being the General Assembly Pension Fund at 24.6%. 24.6%. Where then you get the teachers' retirement system about 46%. But overall, of the 5 funds, $140 billion of unfunded liability, 46% funded. You talk to some financial planners, and they're like, that's just pretty abysmal. One of the things that's driving the cost of the property taxes in the state is pensions, especially when you get to the local level, right? School districts, municipalities. Having covered the Springfield City Council here in Springfield for years, don't follow it nearly as closely as I used to when I was on, traditional terrestrial radio. But I mean, they would talk every year, every budget year. They'd be like, listen, all of our property taxes that we get from taxpayers is going to fund pensions. And it's not getting better. So you've got it on the state level, you've got it on the local level, you've got it on the public safety level with police and firefighters as well. In some areas, other areas doing all right. But you've got the ongoing concern that property taxes are driving high costs for Illinois taxpayers, second highest property taxes in the country. And that's why State Representative Dan Ugasti, he says, listen, there's a fire in Illinois. We're on fire. Here he is from last week talking about how there needs to be a focus on property taxes because it's too high.
Illinois and its economy is like a large building. Let's say the 5th largest building in the United States. And it's on fire. And that fire's been burning for a while. The Democrat supermajority that runs this state are firefighters, and Republicans are too. However, the Democrats are the ones with the keys to the firehouse, and they won't let us in so we can use the equipment we have inside to put out the fire. And still, the bigger problem, at some point, this is going to be a 5-alarm fire, and we will not be able to put it out before it burns to the ground.
So he's got an idea where he says the state budget, which the governor proposed $55 billion. Several years ago, pensions took up a quarter of every dollar. All right, so every $1, or rather every $4 of the state tax dollars that they take from state taxpayers, $1 went to pensions. So a quarter of the state budget was going to pensions. Right now, it's about 20% of the state budget is going to go to pensions. What Ugasti is proposing is, why don't we just make that 25%? And then you make the statutorily required pension payments, which, again, when it's 46% funded, people are looking at that saying, no, you need to get that to 100% funded. But regardless, he says, take that 25%, make your statutorily required pension payments, which could only be 20%, and then take the remainder of that, so it could be 5% of the budget, give it back to school districts, but the school districts that get that money, tell them to lower their property tax levy. So that's Ugasti's idea. Will it actually happen? Not too sure, because Democrats, they've started a working group. A working group at the State House is a closed-door meeting of partisan members of the Democrat Party. They don't let Republicans in. And you have a working group that's going to look at pensions. But you also have the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and I believe the Department of Revenue. They've got a committee that they're going to be looking at property taxes as well, but this comes after 2019 property tax task force to look at it that never produced a report. It was a failure by many who watched and were part of that. So, are we just going to be talking about pensions? Are we actually going to have substantive legislation to address not pensions but property taxes, which could be directly associated with the cost of pensions as well? But to the fire analogy that Ugasti said, he said it's almost a 5-alarm fire, but State Representative Joe Sosnowski from Rockford, a Republican, said it's already there.
I would disagree slightly. It is a 5-alarm fire right now, because look at other states growing. We lose congressional seats. Other states are growing dramatically. States around us, same weather, grow 1% a year. So it's a huge problem right now, and we're chasing more and more people out of Illinois if we don't address it immediately.
How is it going to be addressed? We'll be watching, obviously, in focus here with the Center Square. It is Illinois in focus. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Really enjoy seeing the live chat, as vibrant as it is. If you get a chance, you can go and check that out in the mornings. A lot of conversation all over the place. And we didn't even really scratch the surface of all that could happen today at the Illinois State House. All right, get the headlines in your inbox.
Illinois and its economy.
Oh, we already heard that. All right, so get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. Click newsletter, subscribe, find the podcast where you find podcasts at, just search Illinois in Focus. All right, have a great day.